Our News is brought to you by Alive.
Hello and welcome to Our News. I'm Jerome Sawyer sitting in as always. Thanks for watching. Well, a teenager jailed for 3 months for failing to pay a fine for breaking the emergency orders is free tonight and speaking out about his ordeal. The high school student was set free today after a group of attorneys got together and paid his fine. He tells our Jasmine Brown tonight that he never wants to experience that ordeal again.
The high school student spoke to our news team moments after he met with his attorneys as he described his experience as painful.
Dion Duvernay is an 18-year-old high school student whose life took an unexpected turn after he was arrested by police after 10 p.m. on August 10th for violating the lockdown aimed at curbing community spread of COVID-19. It was a night that changed his life and led him to spend more than a week in custody at the Bahamas Department of Corrections. Duvernay says his arrest came after police stopped him and his cousin as they were walking home.
On the way, carrying him home, we was stopped by the police officers.
The teen, who is headed into the 12th grade this fall, said it was his first run-in with the law. The teen, whose parents are dead, says his experience has left him feeling less than fond of the judicial system. Despite his age, the teen says he was shocked when the presiding magistrate ordered that the fine be paid immediately without asking if the teens had the means to come up with the money. At the moment, he says he felt helpless as he had no relatives with him at court and all he could do was think about missing school.
I did feel bad in a way. The one that they said school was opening up, that's the only thing I was thinking about. And I didn't actually want to get my peoples involved, so it was making no sense. I getting in jail for just staying out late, and they ain't like I doing anything bad. First people who doing things bad, they ain't. These things ain't happening to them for me. We ain't do nothing bad, going in prison.
However, he says court was not the hardest part of his experience. It was his time spent in cramped quarters at the Department of Corrections.
And it ain't, like you say, it's pretty. But they had us in a cell. Once everyone who got locked up that day would be put in this one cell, 5, 6 of us. For quarantine, we'd be staying there for 14 days. You only have 2 bunk beds, so the rest of us can have to sleep on the floor. And they telling us to pay $500 fine, right? But then they ain't using the money to fix the prison bathroom or nothing. Toilet wasn't working. They ain't giving us tissue. We call into them. Some of them would come. Some of them would come and give us what we need and what's not. Some of them would just say yeah and never come back.
As for the attorneys who came to his rescue, the teen says he is forever grateful. The lawyers said they heard of his plight through a voice note from a family member pleading his case and knew they had to help.
We felt that some people were being disenfranchised by these orders, and so we decided to get together as a group and to assist them with paying the fine, and he went down there and got him out.
The attorneys who helped Duvernay says their mission is not completed. They say they are going to assist Duvernay's 19-year-old cousin who was also sent to prison because he lacked the means to pay the fine. Attorney Wayne MUNROE says they have a head start as they learned on Thursday that Duvernay's fine had been paid twice.
We are mobilized to pay the fine. What we didn't know is that Shane Gibson came in, my junior saw him and paid his fine before we were able to, and then we also paid his fine.
MUNROE says they are looking to have the extra funds applied to his cousin's fine so that he can also be released from custody. Reporting for Our News, I'm Jasmine Brown.
Residents of an inner city community told to prepare for the possibility of another 7-day lockdown. BAIN and Grantstown MP Travis Robinson was out preparing his constituents today for the possibility of another lockdown following this weekend. We get the story tonight from Kyle Walking.
It has reached the level of community spread as was announced by the medical professionals. And so at some point, a 7-day lockdown will come about. So it is at this moment now that residents should be preparing themselves, going to the grocery store, getting your medications, etc.
The BAIN and Grantstown MP was out on the streets today, handing out face masks and assisting residents with storm preparations ahead of what he called an inevitable 7-day full lockdown.
You have now an opportunity to do that because we don't know. The storm may come. It may not have a devastating impact, and the competent authority may see it necessary at that particular time, sometime next week, to impose that lockdown. So it's up for us now to take this opportunity, ready ourselves, and let's pull through this together.
On Tuesday evening, Prime Minister Dr. Hubert Minnis reversed a full 7-day lockdown he had just announced the night before. The decision to shut the island down for 1 week resulted in pushback from residents and the business community, as there was no heads up.
The level of distrust, I acknowledge, is among many in society, and for some self-inflicted and for some inherited reasons. But no matter the level of distrust or trust, we have to understand that if we're going to get out of this pandemic on the other side with more lives to save and less persons being infected, we have to do it together.
But the struggle is real within the BAIN and Grahamstown community, as many line up outside of food distribution centers in hopes of getting a bag of groceries to help sustain them for the next few days.
There's oil, cream, a small bag of sugar, milk, and cereal.
I guess that's a big help for you and your family, right?
Yes, I would say so.
You can't get out a lot of times to go for food, especially when the Prime Minister closing down the place immediately. And then with me, my daughter is not working in the house. Don't be like fans like that. They even go to the shop and they do open up.
There are those like Floyd Woodside, who has lived in the area for decades. He hasn't been able to get his usual peanut business going and is now selling breadfruit on the side of the road.
I have to spend two people come to me and I got to help girls. I really like I ain't going looking for these girls, but I speak 1 or 2 friends, and I got to take care of them.
Robinson says the good thing out of all of this is that there is a sense of community where everyone is helping someone.
I believe the spirit of camaraderie and support that this pandemic is engendering is a step in the right direction. If we can continue this brothers keeper kind of attitude and mentality going forward.
For Our News, I'm Kyle Walking.
The Feed Grand Bahama program is expanding its capabilities to try and reach more and more families now in need of food. Minister of State for Grand Bahama Kwesi Thompson reported today that the program has already helped over 7,000 households. And as more Grand Bahamians find themselves in need of help, the numbers are growing.
Applicants who have not yet received any vouchers should be contacted by telephone or by text, and they'll be told when and where they should collect their vouchers.
Thompson confirmed that over 1,000 food vouchers were distributed throughout the island Thursday, and another 2,000 were distributed today. Those looking to receive food assistance are asked to apply at www.feedgrandbahama.com. But Thompson says upon registering, residents will be placed into categories based on need.
So when you register, you will be placed in 3 needs categories: the most vulnerable, moderately vulnerable, and least vulnerable. Assistance to these groups will be weekly, every other week, or once a month, respectively.
We would like the community to know that we have 5 centers that are located, one in East Grand Bahama, Seahorse Village. There's one on Beaconsfield Avenue, which is in Marco City. There's another one on Richardson Avenue, Pine Ridge. There is another one in Lewis Yard, opposite the Mermaid Hole, and of course in 8 Mile Rock.
There is so much uncertainty for thousands of hotel workers nowadays. 2 in particular who spoke with our Jared Higgs talked about how delayed national insurance benefits, the agony of trying to provide for their families, and a general sense of neglect are adding to their despair.
I hurting, and I wouldn't lie. I telling the people I'm hurting. I hurting. I mightn't show it, but I hurting.
46-year-old Latoya McPhee Greenslade worked as a room attendant for the past 8 years. She says the job was tough sometimes, but she stuck with it for the betterment of her family.
We had our differences and our challenges, but I mean, if you want to survive, you have to do what it takes to survive.
The pandemic has struck a devastating blow for the mother of 6 and grandmother of 5. She was terminated at the end of June, and her husband is left to carry the burden.
I don't know when BC come in here to click the light off. I don't know when Cable Bahamas can click it off. I don't know when they can click it off.
To make matters worse, McPhee Greenslade and some of her former colleagues are still waiting on delayed NIB payments. One of those colleagues is 46-year-old Philippa Smith. Also a mother of 6, Smith is dealing with the pandemic on her own. She said she's lucky to have a generous landlord, but she's still struggling to provide for her youngest kids.
As a mother, I have to make sure they eat. If I don't eat, I have to make sure they have clean clothes. If I don't have clean clothes.
Hotel Union President Darrin Woods told our news team that the late NIB payments for the women is being addressed at the highest level, but that may be little reprieve to the women who question their future in the hotel sector.
I don't think I see myself going back, because if I go into this now, no man, because if I feel if I was employed to you and you determine that's man, at least look out for the people.
Wow. When you're working for people and they decide to let you go, it's like, that's it. So it's best you try to make some kind of way out for you could say, well, I could be my own boss.
Reporting for our news, I'm Jared Higgs.
There's lots more news on the way, but here's your first look at weather with meteorologist Greg Thompson.
Thanks, Jerome. I'm meteorologist Greg Thompson with your first look at weather, being brought to you tonight by Downey. Currently outside our studios, we have partly cloudy skies, temperature of 86 degrees Fahrenheit with a southeast wind at 6 knots, feels like temperature around 92 degrees Fahrenheit. Satellite-wise, a quiet day around the islands as a surface ridge of high pressure lives across the region, with just a few showers occurring around the islands today. That's your first look at weather. Your extended forecast is still to come.
And still to come tonight, Grand Bahama residents relieved as laundromats reopen, plus Hotel Union executives respond to rumors of more layoffs at Atlantis. Those stories and more when our news returns. Welcome back. You're watching our news. The reopening of laundromats in Grand Bahama met with a lot of relief and rejoicing after a month-long lockdown on the island. BAIN gets us caught up on that story tonight.
Employees at Atlantis will not be laid off, according to Hotel Union President Darrin Woods, who said the labor minister denied any knowledge of the rumor and assured the union that he has not been contacted by the resort regarding redundancies.
We also know that under the amendment of the Industrial Relations Act 217, it now requires the employer to contact the trade union involved if there is one. Also, the minister indicating their intent to make persons redundant. And that has not happened to date. As it relates to the union, and based on what the minister has said, it's not been contacted in that vein.
When contacted for comment, management at Atlantis said in a one-line statement, "That's ridiculous, and we have no comment." With so many resorts laying off staff during the pandemic, Woods said he has frequently asked management at the mega hotel if they too were going that route.
We have been asking them, what are your plans as it relates to redundancies, particularly when we saw the other resorts move to make persons redundant. Their thing, and they maintain that they intend to ride this process out, and also to ascertain from them exactly a timetable for the reopening. And their response is hard to determine that because of all the mitigating factors on the outside of this country. But they are presently eyeing or targeting an October, November reopening.
Woods also denied claims that Atlantis was in negotiations with the government to pay workers for only 4 years of work instead of 12 years outlined in the labor laws. The hotel union president said he does not see that kind of negotiation ever taking place, as no government would reduce benefits for workers.
The unions have been advocating for some time now for there to be an increase in the payment.
Reporting for our news, I'm Jillian Gray.
We found out this week that 85 police officers are in quarantine from COVID-19 exposure. It's meant that Police Commissioner Paul Roll has had to ensure the police force takes the right safety precautions.
We are practicing social distancing and wearing our masks. Like I said, every now and again we deal with people. And as we deal with persons, there's no guarantee that everybody who interacts with the police interacts with does not have the virus.
The police commissioner acknowledging there has been a lot of misinformation circulating about the police force's handling of the pandemic. To that, he said, it's up to the public to decide who they will believe, adding that he has nothing to hide.
So you have to decide whether you want to take what I say or whether you want to listen to social media. I give you the facts. There's nothing to hide. But in terms of individuals' medical, I have no authority to discuss those kind of issues.
Claims that the Atlantis resort may be laying off more workers refuted today by the president of the Bahamas Hotel Catering and Allied Workers Union and the resort. Jillian Gray reports.
Employees at Atlantis will not be laid off, according to Hotel Union President DARRIN Woods, who said the labor minister denied any knowledge of the rumor and assured the union that he has not been contacted by the resort regarding redundancies.
We also know that under the amendment of the Industrial Relations Act 217, it now requires the employer to contact the trade union involved if there is one. Also, the minister indicating their intent to make persons redundant. And that has not happened to date. As it relates to the union, and based on what the minister has said, it's not been contacted in that vein.
When contacted for comment, management at Atlantis said in a one-line statement, "That's ridiculous, and we have no comment." With so many resorts laying off staff during the pandemic, Woods said he has frequently asked management at the mega hotel if they too were going that route.
We've been asking them what are your plans as it relates to redundancies, particularly when we saw the other resorts move to make persons redundant. Their thing, and they maintain that they intend to ride this process out and also to ascertain from them exactly a timetable for the reopening. And their response is hard to determine that because of all the mitigating factors on the outside of this country, but they are presently eyeing or targeting an October, November reopening.
Woods also denied claims that Atlantis was in negotiations with the government to pay workers for only 4 years of work instead of 12 years outlined in the labor laws. The hotel union president said he does not see that kind of negotiation ever taking place, as no government would reduce benefits for workers.
The unions have been advocating for some time now for there to be an increase in the payment.
Reporting for our news, I'm Jillian Gray.
And still to come tonight, forecasters say the busy hurricane season has only just begun. Stay tuned. This is our news. Tropical storm Laura is the latest storm to threaten these islands, and experts say it's just getting started. The 2020 hurricane season has kicked into high gear, with 3 tropical disturbances now brewing in the Atlantic hurricane basin this week alone. Hurricane historian Wayne Neely explains why the weeks ahead will be so dangerous.
During that time, you have several factors that's occurring in the North Atlantic. You have the weakening of the winds in the upper atmosphere, which means that the hurricane can grow and thrive. For a hurricane to grow, it's like a chimney. It needs that smoke to rise vertically. If it rises at an angle, it means it will weaken the storm, and that's what you have during the earlier months.
On average, the season peaks between the middle of August and late October, and around about September 10th is when we see the most activity in the tropics.
The 15th of August to about 15th or 20th of September, that's when you get pretty light winds. You also get warmer seas. You get the warmest seas occurring during that time. Normally in the seas, there's an oceanic lag that prevents it from being hottest in June, even though the peak of even though the beginning of the summer season is soon, typically the water takes a little longer to warm up. And the ideal time to warm up is between 15th of August to about 15 or 20 of September. And that's the ideal time for warming.
Well, meteorologist Greg Thompson will have lots more to talk about in the extended weather forecast, which is up next, right after this break. Time now for a look at your extended weather forecast. Once again, here's meteorologist Greg Thompson.
Thanks again, Jerome. I'm meteorologist Greg Thompson with your second look at weather. Still watching Tropical Storm Laura, which formed early today, trying to organize but looking a bit ragged. Timing has remained consistent and Laura will make its way to the Bahamas, impacting the southern islands and the Turks and Caicos Islands by late Saturday into Sunday, making its way on a west-northwest track between the Bahamas and Cuba through Monday, with tropical storm conditions affecting the islands. Laura will likely become a hurricane late Monday into Tuesday west of the islands as it moves into the Gulf of Mexico. Reminding all residents to monitor the progress of the system through alerts being issued by the Department of Meteorology. Here's a boating forecast for the northwest Bahamas. East to southeast winds, 15 knot seas running 3 to 5 feet. Southeast and central Bahamas, we expect east to southeast winds 15 to 20 knots, seas running 4 to 7 feet over the ocean. Here's a look now at your national forecast. Now we'll look at your extended forecast through Wednesday. That's a look at your weather. Make it a great night, everyone.
That's going to do it for this edition of Our News. On behalf of the entire team, I'm Jerome Sawyer. Thanks for watching. Enjoy the rest of your evening and have a great and safe